Have you ever wondered why certain paths seem to repeat themselves? Why, even when you change cities, routines, people, do you keep coming across the same dilemmas, the same fears, the same emptiness? Many people call this destiny. But perhaps destiny is not an endpoint, perhaps it is a mirror, a reflection of what you insist on not seeing. This story begins with a simple man. He worked with wood, lived in silence, and always said the same thing: "I have no luck." He repeated this with every pain, every loss, every failure, as if life had condemned him to walk in circles. One day, while collecting logs near the river, he found a strange old man sitting by the water. The old man seemed blind, but he knew exactly who he was. Without introducing himself, he said, "What you call bad luck is just destiny trying to teach you what you refuse to learn." The man laughed uncomfortably. "And what do I refuse to learn?" he asked, in a tone that was more ironic than curious. The old man then stood up, pointed to the river and said, "The current does not choose where it goes, but the stone that insists on not moving suffers until it breaks." The man did not understand. Or perhaps he understood too much. He turned his back and left. He would rather carry the wood than carry a truth that threatened to dismantle his world. That night he dreamed of a road, long, repetitive, full of forks. At each crossroads he chose a path and returned to the starting point. Always. He woke up with a strange feeling, as if time were laughing at him, as if the whole world already knew something that he still refused to accept. Little by little he began to notice the patterns. Every time he tried to grow, he sabotaged himself. Every time a good person approached him, he pushed them away. Every time a new opportunity arose, something inside him said, "You don't deserve it." These voices didn't come from outside. They came from inside, from an old place. Maybe from his childhood, maybe from before that. He returned to the river a few days later. He looked for the old man, but there was no one. Just the water running. Just the wind through the trees. He sat down in the same place. And there, for the first time, he didn't look for answers. Just silence. It was at that moment that a phrase crossed his mind, as if it came from another plane. Fate doesn't punish. It repeats. Until you change. He then got up and went back home. But something inside him had changed. Not because he understood everything, but because he finally stopped resisting what life was trying to show him. In the following days, things didn't improve visibly. He was still poor. Work was still hard. But inside him, something was different. He stopped asking himself why, and started asking himself, "What is this trying to show me?" One morning, walking through the village, he heard an old acquaintance say, "Fate is a prison. No matter what we do, we always end up back where we are." He just smiled. He had thought that way too. But now he saw it differently. Fate was not a prison. It was a hall of mirrors. And each repeated choice was a chance to look deeper, to see the cracks that had always been there, even when everything seemed whole. He remembered the first time he had lost someone. He was a child. His mother was sick. He remembered his father's expression, "Life always takes from those who have the least." That was the day he accepted a lie. The lie that life was just about surviving. And he carried it for decades as if it were an immutable inheritance. But destiny, silent as it is, always gives us chances to break the invisible inheritance. It just doesn't speak with words, it speaks with repetitions. He decided to test this new vision. A new opportunity arose. A merchant in the city needed furniture to sell. The payment was fair, but the man hesitated. Part of him wanted to refuse. It was the same old impulse. "This is too much for me." But that day, he said yes. Not because he was confident, but because he understood that fear was the real cycle. And when he finished the furniture and delivered it to the merchant, something strange happened. He was praised and paid. Nothing went wrong. The world didn't fall apart because he had accepted something good. That was the first rupture. Small, almost invisible. But inside him, It felt like a silent earthquake. He began to walk differently, to talk less about bad luck, to listen more to his own silence, not as an absence of sound, but as a space to perceive the signs. One rainy night, while he was tending the fire, he thought again about the old man by the river. What if he had never existed? What if he was just a reflection of what his soul already knew? Maybe the old man was himself, in another form. An echo of what he could become, if he had the courage to see. Time passed. The days didn't get easier, but they did get brighter. He understood that clarity is not the absence of pain, it is the absence of denial. And that was what fate had always tried to show. That pain only and repeats when you insist on ignoring what it wants to teach you. One day when he was older, he found a child sitting on the side of the road. She was hungry, dirty, and her eyes were frightened. Everyone passed by and looked away. He stopped. He sat down next to her and offered her what he had, a piece of bread and a story. He told her about the river, about the blind old man, about the road that always led to the same place until he learned to walk differently. The child listened in silence, as if she already knew the end. When the story ended, she said, "So destiny is not what happens. It is what I choose to see." He smiled. Exactly. Sometimes the only change is where you put your eyes. That night, he wrote something on a piece of paper and kept it inside a wooden box. Fate doesn't change when you run away from it. It changes when you change the way you see it. He never took that sentence out of there again, but he also never needed to read it again. Years later, when his body was already aching with the weight of time, someone came knocking on his door. It was a young man dressed in fine clothes but with troubled eyes. He said he had heard of an old carpenter who knew things that no one else did, who understood time, cycles, losses. The man simply said, "Sit down, be silent. Destiny will tell you what you need to hear." And so they stayed, without saying anything else. The old man knew that sometimes destiny only appears when you finally stop talking. In the last days of his life, he looked back, not with nostalgia but with gratitude. Every mistake was a chance to listen. Every loss, a reminder. Every repetition, an invitation to awareness. And he realized, destiny was never an enemy. It was a patient master, an invisible sculptor, who shaped his soul with the same hands day after day, until he learned to look with his heart, and not with fear. At the last sunset, while the sky was turning orange and silent, he closed his eyes with a phrase on his lips. "Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave up." The wind blew lightly, as if responding without haste. And perhaps this is the point you need to hear most today. Fate does not rush, but it also does not wait forever. It repeats, it whispers, it tests you, until you understand that your escape only takes you back to the point where it all began. You can continue to blame life, or you can, for the first time, listen to what it is trying to show you. Because ignoring destiny does not free you from it. It only stops you from dancing with it.